What's up, everyone? Matt Gajewski here, back again talking college football, and today we're going to break down the Florida Gators roster ahead of 2025. Before we get started, if there's anything you'd like to see in these videos, any feedback you have, please leave it below. I've gotten a little bit so far, and I appreciate it. It helps the videos overall. If you want to support in other ways, subscribing, leaving a comment, both of those help a lot. So thank you if you've subscribed to the channel or liked the video, left a comment, anything. It's not lost on me that you are choosing to spend your time here, especially in April before the transfer portal has even closed. But let's talk Florida. We'll bring you to last year's efficiency metrics for this team. They overachieved, at least compared to their win total, finishing 8-5. Their win total was 5.5. Billy Napier is now entering his fourth season as head coach of Florida. I think he squashed some of the hot seat stuff with a 8-5 record last year. They are overall 19-19 under him. Napier previously came over from Louisiana. He's an offensive guy, but a lot of the concerns with the program, I think, weren't his fault. Perennially, this is the most difficult schedule in football. Their NIL and recruiting packages have grown since he's gotten there. That was a main concern for Florida early on. But as you can see, this team still has a ways to go in areas to improve. Offensively, their passing numbers definitely trailed a little bit. They had to turn to a freshman signal caller midway through the season. So that's going to happen. And then on defense, their coverage has been a problem for a length of time now. But they did hire a new DBs coach, which hopefully will squash some of those concerns. But that's where Florida stands. As far as their overall body work and resume with the 8 wins, this is where they finished in efficiency metrics. So what can we expect moving forward with Napier? Recruiting-wise, this team is in an upward trajectory. They climbed back into the top 10 this year after finishing 13th each of the last 2 years. Retention has been pretty good for Napier, 90% in 2024, 67% in 23. Their transfer classes have been a little up and down. This year, they've only brought in a couple transfers. They're 94th in the country. The 2 prior years, they were 6th and 16th. So it appears this Billy Napier-run Florida Gators team is transitioning from a portal-heavy recruiting style towards more high schoolers, which has benefited a lot of teams throughout college football. So I'm not surprised to see it happening. Let's get to the roster. So this is a tool that we've made. It essentially, on the left, is a 2-deep depth chart. And then it has the experience of these players over the last 2 seasons in terms of snaps, their recruiting ranking in terms of stars, and then a player ranking. This takes your recruiting ranking into consideration first, and then it looks at statistical production. The more you've played, the less it looks at the recruiting ranking. Players in yellow are transfers. Players in the pinkish red are injured. And we will break down all of them in detail. We have a reserve section down at the bottom. If you want to scroll down, you can see players that might contribute. Usually these are transfers or highly recruited players. Towards the right, we have incoming transfers and departing transfers. Then we just have offensive and defensive departures. So those are players that have all played at least 100 snaps for Florida, and it gives you a good idea of what we need to replace. And with Florida, honestly, especially on offense, it's not all that much. So that's where we begin. And up at the quarterback position, we have DJ Lagway now taking over full-time for Graham Mertz, who suffered an injury pretty early on into last year's season. Lagway's a former 5-star, and he was the 7th-ranked recruit in 2024. He completed 60% of his passes for 10 yards per attempt, 12 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. Also showed some good mobility, 101 yards on 51 attempts. He did suffer a severe hamstring injury at the end of last year, which limited his rushing ability. He's currently dealing with a shoulder issue. All that's a little concerning with Lagway. You don't want to stymie development for a young player like this, but still, he had 18 big-time throws, 7 turnover-worthy plays. Yes, you heard me right. He had 9 interceptions and 7 turnover-worthy plays. Occasionally, you have wide receivers commit such egregious errors that a turnover-worthy play is attributed to them, whether they volleyball set a pass directly into a defender's hands. A lot of them are tip passes. Lagway had 2 of those. So a very good season that could have been even better. if he had gotten a little more out of his receivers. More on them in a bit. Behind Lagway, Florida adds Louisville transfer Harrison Bailey. The former five-star has now been unable to play at Tennessee, UNLV, and Louisville. Did look good in relief last year, but that was in the bowl game when Chug left. It is what it is. They had four-star freshman Tramel Jones. Also have third stringer Aiden Warner back. So the quarterback room should be fine. It's not as deep as last year when they had Mertz and Lagway. But, if Lagway goes down for any reason, this team is cooked anyway. Running back. This was a position of relative strength last year. They lose Montrell Johnson, but they do get back Jaden Baugh and Jacoby Jackson. Both were pretty efficient on small samples. Baugh is a former four-star. He's 6'1", 230. Rushed for 673 yards. That was at 5.1 yards per carry. Only caught 4 passes. Jackson's a little smaller at 5'10", 216. He carried 95 times for 509 yards. That's 5.4 yards per carry, catching 7 passes. And they also have back Trayon Webb and KD Daniels, who both briefly appeared last year. Webb suffered a season-ending injury. So there's 2 more 4-stars. And if that wasn't enough, 2025 4-stars, Byron Lewis and Duke Clark enter the program. So running back should be in just about as good of a position as it's been since they had, Trevor Etienne and Montrell Johnson. I think this is an upgrade from what they had last year. Wide receiver almost certainly is an upgrade. They lost their best player, Eugene Wilson, right away to begin the season. He's back now for his junior season. As a true freshman, he caught 61 balls for 538 yards, 6 scores. He's 5'10", 185, plays in and out of the slot, was actually a 42% slot player. He's probably your best player, I think, without question, honestly. And from there, the depth chart's a little tricky to parse because Khalil Jackson, who played a lot in 2023, also got hurt immediately last year. He suffered a torn ACL. But he's a former walk-on, caught 21 passes for 251 yards in 2023, 6'3", 215. Frankly, he's just not a player that should be on the field. Former walk-on, 0.91 yards per route is atrocious. To be good, you need to be at least 2, and the elite players are above 3. 0.091 is horrific. And this has been a problem with Florida in the early years with Napier. They were not recruiting well enough because of partially a lack of resources. They've played too many walk-ons. Flat out, no way around it. Khalil Jackson is not an SEC player. I'm sorry, it is what it is. And since that 2023 season where they were forced to use Khalil Jackson, they've had a lot of players come in and out of the program. They've added transfers. J. Michael Sturdivant's now with the program. Former Cal and UCLA transfer, 6'3", 205, plays the perimeter. Weird career for him. His best season came in 2022 with Cal, 1.74 yards per out, 755 yards. Both of those numbers have declined the last 2 years. He bottomed out at UCLA last year with 315 yards, 0.95 yards per out. He's done it, so we at least know what's in there. You don't always know what players are dealing with. A lot of them are banged up and it's not reported on. So I don't know why Sturdivant has just declined year over year over year, but he gets another shot with Florida. And if it's not Sturdivant, if it's not Khalil Jackson, there are 4-star recruits with this team. Aiden Mizell caught 17 balls last year. Tank Hawkins caught 10 balls last year. Both of them had to play a little bit. TJ Abrams is back. He played a handful of snaps last year for Florida. The incoming class is probably the true ceiling. They have a 5-star in Vernell Brown. 4-stars, Dallas Wilson, Nashawn Montgomery are still there as well from the incoming class. So a lot of the players are youthful. And when you have players like Vernell Brown, 5-stars, there just isn't a strong case to be made for Khalil Jackson getting on the field over these players unless there's an injury or something happens. All this to say, expecting Florida's wide receiver room to be improved from last year. But the true ceiling is going to come down to how quickly they can get these young players moving within the offense. Tight end, not exactly a position of strength. Hayden Hansen is back. He caught 15 passes last year. He's more, or at least he looks like a blocker. He's 6'7", nearly 270, but he's a 3-star recruit. And the big thing that you don't see with recruiting is, okay, there's not very many 5-stars. There's 100 or so 4-stars, and then everyone else is a 3-star. But there's high 3-stars, there's low 3-stars. Hansen's a 29th percentile recruit. He should not be on an SEC field, which makes sense when you see his receiving production is very poor. He was a below-average blocker despite being enormous. So, yeah, he just shouldn't play. Where do you go instead? You're looking at youth again. Tony Livingston, he's a 4-star, played 218 snaps last year, 6'4", 254. Better efficiency than Hansen in most areas. We just need to extrapolate that forward, because if Hansen's on the field, you're putting a below average player out there. You can't have that. They also have 2024 4-star Amir Jackson, only 12 snaps last year. They have Air Force transfer Caleb Rios back after he missed all of 2024. I don't think you can really rely on him. Like receiver, outside of Eugene Wilson, the true ceiling of this position comes down to your young transfers, because the players you've been using just are not SEC caliber players. Credit to Florida for being as good as they have been and improving. And this should come as no surprise. I mean, like a 19-19 record, Billy Napier's in the hot seat. You can't have Hayden Hansen being tight end and expect to win games. It just is what it is. Offensive line, there's a lot of players back for this team. Left tackle, Austin Barber's back. He started 2 years now. Above average play last year, especially as a pass blocker. 13 pressures allowed. And technically, he was the weakest link for this unit. This should be a very good offensive line. I think it starts with your blind side. Left guard is Najee Harris, 668 snaps last year, 17 pressures allowed. Very good as a run blocker, one of the better run blockers for this unit. Center is Jake Slaughter. He's the best offensive lineman this team has. Starter for 2 years. Only allowed 1 sack and 9 total quarterback pressures last year. Good run blocker. Right guard is Damian George. 412 snaps last year, 693 in 2023. He's a former Alabama transfer, and he was injured for part of last year, but only 5 QB pressures allowed. Very good numbers, especially pass blocking for Damian George. And finally, at right tackle, they're replacing Crenshaw Dixon. So you've got Bryce Lovett, who played 362 snaps. He was mainly a guard, but he did play 72 snaps at right tackle, so that's a possibility. Louisiana transfer Cameron Waits followed Billy Napier here. He played 255 snaps. He's 6'8", 370 pounds. He just has not been able to transition up to the SEC. Don't really see that being something that's going to change this year. And then they also have Arkansas transfer Devon Manuel on the roster. He only played 58 snaps last year, but he played 417 for Arkansas in 2023 with solid production. So he's another option. Basically, you have 7 players who you could play in a pinch, and some you feel very good about. That doesn't even include the 4-stars from the last 2 classes. They finally started bringing in some of these guys. They flipped Jason Zandamela last year from USC, and they've also brought in Roderick Kearney, Caden Jones, Marcus Maskell, Fletcher Westfall. And this year they bring in TJ Dice. So a lot of good youthful players, which is positive because we've played walk-ons, we've played 3-stars. They're just not SEC caliber players, and now you're starting to bring in the true players. You need to compete with Alabama, Georgia, Texas, which has always been Florida's aspiration. So it's good to see their program finally actually, from the outside looking in at least, all in line. Defense. Defensive line, this should be a strength of the team as it was last year. They returned George Gums from Northern Illinois and Tyreek Sapp. Gums was solid in his first year, transitioning up from the back, 435 snaps, 26 QB pressures. But the real wagon for this unit was Tyreek Sapp. 26 QB pressures, 13% pass rush win rate, elite run defense numbers. Tyreek Sapp, I think you could argue, is among the best players on this entire team. And as you can see, the former 4-star has the highest value score on the entire team, ahead of Eugene Wilson, ahead of Jake Slaughter. This is an elite player on this team. That doesn't even consider, now you have players like LJ McCray, 5-star in last year's class, played 181 snaps. He's the 20th ranked prospect. He's back for his second season. You have 360 snaps out of 4-star Cameron James. Incoming 4-star Jaden Woods. The edge group is very good, and it's no surprise. This group ran out Jack Pyburn. This group ran out TJ Searcy. I'm not surprised, whatever. Those 2 players transferred to other high-profile teams. Now, this defensive edge group should be among the better groups in the SEC. Inside, Florida got 422 snaps from Caleb Banks. Good run defense, 29 QB pressures from the interior alignment. The problem is there's not much behind him. Your top candidates to play are DeAndre Robinson, who had 162 snaps, Mekhi Boiro, who played 144 snaps. They do get back Jamari Lyons, who broke his ankle last fall. He played 198 snaps in 2023. Couple four-star freshmen, Jalen Wiggins, Joseph Mbachu, Jeremiah McLeod are back for reinforcements. So I think this unit's going to be pretty good. Having Lyons back, Banks up top is solid, and then what you get out of Robinson and Boireau should help a lot. Linebacker was not a position of strength for Florida last year. They lose Shamar James, who was average on 438 snaps. They will return Jaden Robinson. He played 438 snaps, and Grayson Howard, who played 280. I think these players are solid enough for this team. Neither of them were particularly strong, but you do have the potential for some four-star freshmen to potentially play more. Miles Graham and Aaron Childs both came in last year's class. They're both sophomores now. And this is the difference between your high four stars and low four stars. Graham was the 51st ranked recruit. Childs was the 61st. So these players are borderline five-star linebackers that are now back for their second seasons with Florida. If Robinson and Grayson Howard can't develop, these two players should be more than capable. They also had incoming four-star Ty Jackson. I'm expecting improvement for the linebacker position. It's just a little reliant on youth. Defensive back was the weakest link by an absolute mile. And the first thing Florida did was hire new DBs coach Deron Wilson. He coached the same position for Arkansas, which has had a lot of success. So the first thing they're really hoping is that they can accelerate the development path for some of the high recruits that have really struggled for this team under the previous defensive backs coach. The two boundary corners are probably going to be Dejon Johnson and Devin Moore. They played 550 and 278 snaps apiece last year. Both were decent in coverage and they're former four stars. Both had completion percentages below 50% allowed, but their samples weren't the largest for this team. But that gives you a pretty decent foundation. Then you have Cormani McLean, the former five-star, briefly with Colorado, played 111 snaps last year, has put on some weight on his frame. He was actually someone Napier singled out as the single most improved player this offseason. So if he's buying into the program, we know the talent's there. Let's see if Wilson can coax it out of him. They also have Jamrock Grimsley, former four-star, back for his second season playing the boundary. So boundary corners should be improved tentatively. In the slot, they have Sharif Denson and Aaron Gates. Both were slightly above average on 495 and 322 snaps. Both are former four stars. Denson was a little weaker of the two in coverage especially, but you have some options here at least, and maybe you could even move one of those boundary guys into the slot if necessary. At safety, starters and four stars, Bryce Thornton and Jordan Castillo are back. They played 471 and 774 snaps. Thornton was one of the better coverage players on the team last year. He only allowed 140 yards into his coverage. But everyone else basically comes with some concern, Castillo especially. The sort of, I don't know how to put this, complete wild card with the unit is Asa Turner. The Washington transfer was hurt immediately last year. He was granted another year eligibility late, so he was technically not on the spring roster. We don't know for sure he'll be on the summer roster. But he could play again if he wants to. They also added Southern Miss transfer Michael Caraway for depth. We'll see what else they bring in because the recruits look pretty good on paper. Drake Stubbs, Ben Hanks III, Lagonza Hayward, Javari Flowers, Onis Konabani, all of them are back in four stars. It should be a better unit. Almost everything on Florida should be improved. And it's, again, the best way to put this is back in 2023, 2022, this team was not recruiting at a good enough level. So you were forced to play three stars. You're forced to play walk-ons. Now that you've had 3 consecutive years of top 15 recruiting classes and you have one coming in the top 10, your talent is different than it was back then. Some of the walk-ons and 3 stars are aging out, and you can replace them with youthful players of better recruiting pedigrees. Kicker Trace Mack is back. He started the last 2 years. He's never missed an extra point. Only missed 7 field goals in his career. He's 5 of 7 on 50-plus. So this is a guy with some range, too. Florida's special teams should be better than 78th overall. Part of that is coaching, but having a good kicker will help you without a doubt. Let's look at Florida's perennial most difficult schedule in the country. There are a couple teams that'll definitely give them some, at least a rival this year, but it's still not easy. Florida has a better runway this year. They start off with Long Island, and then they play USF, who by no means is an easy G5 team. And those are the only teams on the schedule that aren't Power 4, if you want to call it that. You go to LSU, you go to Miami in weeks 3 and 4. That's a brutal stretch, double road trip before your bye. Coming out of your bye, you play Texas, then you play at Texas A&M. Not only that, but you have to play Georgia later in the season. You have to go to Ole Miss, and then you close the year with Florida State, they're down, certainly. Think they'll be better than last year's 2-win season. But even if you want to say Florida State's a middling team, this is still a tough non-conference opponent when a lot of teams are scheduling just complete cupcakes in their non-con. Go through the SEC, a lot of them play one hard game and 3 layups. You don't have that with Florida. In fact, you have 2 games you could easily lose against Miami and Florida State, and then you have a USF team who's not going to be bad. Florida will probably be close to like a 21-point favorite, but it's still, you're not playing Temple. So it is what it is. This is one of the most difficult schedules in the country. You can argue this is the most difficult SEC schedule. Florida now has the talent to at least compete with some of these teams, but I think most likely you're looking at a 7 to 9 win season for the Gators. And a lot of that's going to hinge on how they do against some of the middling SEC teams. You play Mississippi State, you play at Kentucky, you play Tennessee. You need to win those games if you're getting to 8. Because, okay, LIU, USF, 2. Let's go through just the easiest ones. Mississippi State, at Kentucky, Tennessee, Florida State. They only put you at 6. Now you need to beat Ole Miss. You need to beat A&M. You need to do something. So that's brutal for Florida. Again, their AD is doing them no favors. But should be fireworks almost every year. This is going to be a popcorn team throughout the season, one you'll want to watch basically from week 3 onward. But until we get there, thank you guys for watching. We'll be back with more teams shortly. LSU next. Until then, thank you for watching. We'll see you again next time.